that, we have
Well,
our finals set. Izzet Phoenix Mirror, Maxx Kominowski, the Izzet Master, versus Matthew Hoey, the NRG Juggernaut. Typically plays a little bit more controlling style decks, but obviously no stranger to blue and has done a great job cleaning up in mirrors all day today. Can he do it one more time? We're about to find out.
All right. Thank you for that setup, Drake. That lays it out. No, that is perfect. That is everything on the line for these players as we march towards the conclusion of an extremely exciting Saturday to start things off here at the NRG Series in Chicago. So these players are going to, both of them, as we laid out, very experienced with the mirror. So a lot can go on, especially here in game one before either player has a chance to set their decks against each other. So first things first, we start cantripping on through the deck here for Matthew, setting things up as Max does the same.
Yeah, a little bit of exchanging resources early. A big fixture of the game one is trying to find a way to kind of blow open the mirror. We mentioned, having more birds than the other player is a way to do that. Another way to do that, especially when you're behind, is the Temporal Trespass Galvanic Iteration trick that we've seen Kominowski specifically do on camera, but is usually present in most iterations of the Izzet Phoenix deck list. You are able to assemble that kind of combination. Involves moving a lot of cards around, getting cards in your graveyard. Both these players do a good job of that. Both looking for birds, looking to get cards in the graveyard. Treasure cruises can keep things running. If you resolve more of those, of course, you can kind of win a card advantage axis. But at the end of the day, you do need to close the game. Best ways to do that, having more birds than your opponent and taking extra turns and then closing with things like Hall of the Storm Giant and that like.
Yeah, I was thinking about it when we were watching this matchup earlier with the extra turn, is just how impactful it is. Just obviously taking extra turns, great. But even if you're at bird parity, right? If you both have 4 birds and you attack with your birds and they trade, and then you'd pass back and then they would trade. That's sort of the normal sort of give and take there. But if you're able to trade with all of their birds and then they think they're going to get them back, but then you just take another turn and get yours back instead, you get your free attack in. So it just completely breaks the parity. At any point, really, but especially in that late game, it turns into just a really good explore into just the game's actually over, which is what you really are looking for in a matchup where each player has a lot of interaction going back and forth. It's those things that if you can catch a window to get it, it's just done with, and that's what that card specifically gives you access to. And we'll see as players work towards that. Of course, the other option, as you said, is to just have more birds. And Free the Fae is going to put 1 into Matthew's graveyard to get things started.
Yeah, definitely. Nice. I really appreciate the breakdown. I think that was a really heads-up analysis of what's going on here. And if you want to simplify it even further, we meme a lot on the term tempo and how it kind of just means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, how it's kind of shadow banned in spaces and things like that. That, of course, leaves me loving to make fun of it and all that kind of stuff. But fundamentally, if you talk about any other field where tempo is a word that is used, it means time. And nothing gives you more time than extra turn effects. So if you're talking about a tempo mirror, the best cards to resolve are going to be the extra turns, and that definitely holds true in the Izzet Phoenix mirror.
Yeah. All right. So first things first, looks like Matthew's going to get it started. Is the first one to start with the bird coming out of the graveyard here. We'll see if Max has an early answer to it, or if Matthew's able to get the beatdown going. But bird number 1 has come in, and looks like Max is just going to take it, fall to 15, and untap and plan his own turn from here.
It looks like it's going to start with a 2-drop. A fixture of the Phoenix Mirror used to be getting the early chip shops with the birds in is fine. If it gets killed by a Fire Impulse like we're seeing right here, that's fine. It goes back to the graveyard and get it back again later. You got a card out of their hand. Obviously, Max is getting some value alongside this Connive, but that's fine. A fine trade for you. However, both of these players have adopted the recent development in the deck where there's a single copy of Torch of the Tower. If you try to take that line early on, like we saw Matthew Hoey do, and Max has the Torch of the Tower, it can start to look a lot more dicey of a play to make.
Yeah, a lot less free, that's for sure, as it feels like, right? And that's essentially the Izzet Phoenix deck does a lot of things. It casts a lot of spells, but in the end, it generally kills you with the 3/2 flyers. And if you can just get rid of the 3/2 flyer literally forever, then it becomes much more difficult for them to actually work their way to a winning board state, right? And that's been a sort of a key Phoenix point of interaction over the weekend. But in this case, Max just has the fiery impulse, so Matthew is able to get that shot in with the bird. leave it in the graveyard here, and whether he brings it back now or later, it's a little bit of value gained, and as so will be this second Arclight Phoenix hitting the yard off of Free the Fae.
I think we get it both right now. Yeah, we sure do. No torch to the tower last turn means no torch to the tower this turn. And Matthew,
Yep.
with 2 birds to Max's 0, I mentioned this is how you get ahead, is definitely ahead.
Yeah, that chip shot damage. Look, even if you were to answer him now, it doesn't take much more from here. And as it stands, the game's just going to be over really fast if you can't find this. Like that, you fall down to 6 life, anything under 7, and all of a sudden, Hall of the Storm Giants becomes this weird late game card that can just get you, even if you answer the birds by that point. So Max under all kinds of pressure right now to try to find a way back in, and it's probably going to involve some Arclight Phoenixes of his own if he's able to do it. We've seen him in a lot of tough spots this weekend. Dig his way out. Here he is in the final.
Never shaken. Stoic the entire time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Many, many bad odds. Can he do it one more time? We will find out. Not looking great this game, but we've been here before.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, yep, I can't beat all that. And then just miracles occur, and suddenly Max is the victor. That's just been the script. Of course, that I don't want to diminish the incredible play and heads up decisions that Max has made throughout this tournament, but from this point of view, it has certainly looked like a Houdini act.
All right, so going a little slower here. Ledger Shredder and a tap land hit the battlefield. Matthew Hoey with all of the initiative in the world if he wants to take it here, and that's what he does. Ledger Shredder down to Lightning Axe. The skies are clear for these Arclight Phoenixes.
Yeah, he's had some timely lightning axes for these Ledger Shredders. Every time Max plays one, obviously Ledger Shredder can line up great against Arclight Phoenixes. It's just a continuous blocker. Right. As soon as it becomes a 2/4, and Hoey's just stopped that right in its tracks every single time. It has been well rewarded for the effort. And now Max has to start making some plays that not quite what you want to do. Doesn't feel good just to preserve a little bit of life.
What an awkward hand. He also doesn't even have his own Phoenix to pitch to that Lightning Axe. So it doesn't look like the deck cooperated too well with Max here. Meanwhile, Matthew all it takes is a couple of recursive birds. This makes the second bird that Max has had to kill that could just come back. So
that's
marching towards a possible finish here. Max down to 6 life, takes a draw step, looking for answers to Matthew's recursion. First step looks like a Free the Fae.
Yeah, Free the Fae, a good place to start, and a bird, another great place to start. Treasure Cruise, a fine follow-up too. I'll tell you what. Now
that's right. I think he'll also have access. He might also have access to a land drop here, so could keep going. And there's the Treasure Cruise you mentioned. The third
trespass off the table.
Yeah, the third spell could be another one to put a Phoenix into the graveyard, allowing him to bring back multiple Phoenix this turn after this Treasure Cruise. However,
it's Spell Pierce.
Matthew Hoey has not just been watching from his seat. He has been patiently waiting to deploy a Spell Pierce, and he has it now at the absolute clutch moment. May or may not be enough to close the game out. We'll see, but that was huge right there.
I don't know, we talked a little bit about thresholds and what the threshold is for saying someone has it all. I don't know what it is. I don't think it gets enough conversation. That's all I'm going to get at as Matthew quickly ends this game 1.
Yeah, he had it all on that game. For that turn, he had enough.
Everything came up Matthew Hoey at every single point. Well, we've talked a lot about how to sideboard against the Lotus Field deck, but no Lotus Field here right now. It's an Izzet Phoenix Mirror. What can Maxx Kominowski do in that spot? Let's find out.
Well, that's the question. We saw Unlicensed Hearse when we popped into the last game, last round. We saw Unlicensed Hearse just take off. So I'm sure we're going to see that this round. Of course, you've got you were mentioning, we talked about Fable, the Mirror Breaker, Crackling Drake, as cards that work in some matchups. Young Pyromancer. This seems like a matchup where there's likely to be a lot of removal pointed back and forth at the creatures that are not Arclight Phoenixes. What is the best way for people to interact here? Is this going to be a grindy sort of slog? Is this going to be a interact with graveyards only? How does this usually play out?
So surprisingly, this is actually a spot where you get a lot of agency about how you want to approach things. And what I mean by
Hmm.
that is, I've seen players do things as wild as trim down on Phoenixes and bring in Angers. And that way,
Hmm.
you're able to exile their Phoenixes and yours aren't getting exiled. And you have all these X4, like 4 toughness threats that
Yeah.
aren't getting exiled. I don't like that as much. What I do like and what I do know is that Mystical Dispute traditionally is the best card in the matchup. 1 mana traditionally trades up on mana, answers the best card in the matchup, which is Temporal Trespass, can also just, as a floor, cover the 2 mana threats that happen on turn
Right.
2. And, really just is a catch all that can scale in the late game alongside things like Galvanic Iteration or Spell Pierces to team up and still have a lot of efficacy there. Alongside that, I do also like things like Crackling Drake, just a threat that can threaten to win the game and draws a card even if it gets answered. So,
Yeah.
once again, if you're exchanging resources, it's still a 2-for-1, even if it gets answered. I like that. You mentioned a lot of removal. It's good against that. Hearse is a slam dunk for exiling the graveyards. Beyond that, you can kind of pick your poison. Whether or not you want Pyromancers, well, it can get answered by 1 mana answers, but how many of those are still in the deck? Who knows? Borrower, kind of the same boat. You can bounce, things like a Flip Thing in the Ice if that matters, or a Crackling
Hmm.
Drake or whatever, while holding up your mana, that you kind of get some agency to pick your poison for how you want to approach this matchup. And so I'm not going to speculate too much on those cards, but I would expect Mystical Disputes, Hearse for sure, and almost certainly some number of Crackling Drake.
That
Let's
makes
take a
sense.
look
Let's look real quick at Max or at Matthew's deck as well. Let's look at his sideboard, see if it differs very much, as it looks pretty similar. He's got
Is it
Brotherhood's
card for
End
card
instead
the
of Anger
same?
the
No,
God.
I think there's the Angers are Brotherhood's Ends,
Yeah.
and the Ashrocks in the Gate. We have 3
Yeah.
changes. Otherwise, the exact same. So, like I said, I would sideboard the exact same. There's a few main deck differences, but again, there's going to be a lot of choice. Now, I think Hoey is, by having Brotherhood's End and not Anger the Gods, you're definitely loudly making a statement that card is not a card you're bringing in. So,
Yeah.
maybe there's a little
Right.
bit you can draw
Exactly.
from that. But specifically, still very interested in the Mystical Disputes, the Hearse, some number of Crackling Drake almost certainly, Fable probably in the same boat, less so on the Young Pyromancer because of the removal, Brazen Borrower, maybe depending on how you want to approach things.
Well, 4 toughness seems like the break point. You mentioned the Crackling Drakes that we see in both players' sideboards. Lightning Axe deals 5, of course, but the other removal spells only deal 2 or 3. And of course, Arclight Phoenix as a 3/2 runs all day into 4 toughness defenders. So those Crackling Drakes, you mentioned it, that becomes very relevant, just the number of X4 flying threats that players can deploy here. So I think we are ready to start game 2 of the finals. Maxx Kominowski on the play with Izzet Phoenix down a game against Matthew Hoey's Izzet Phoenix. Both players aiming to become the NRG Championship Series winner here in Chicago.
Yeah, and Hoey, has the opportunity to do it right now in this game. Punch his ticket to the end of year championship, something he's done a great job in the past. I'd have to go look. This has been around a long time. There's been a lot of championships, but it would legitimately shock me if Hoey is not among either the single or maybe one other people that have played every single one. And that is such an absurd feat to do.
It really
You
is.
see here, this crazy field full of a ton of talent. Hoey rising to the occasion, finds himself in the finals. Just such, in my opinion, an underrated player, even though a lot of people know who he is. He gets a lot of accolades. He's whatever. He's been a great fixture. Even beyond that, I think he's underrated because he is just so good and proves it time and time again, both in consistency and in just deck choice. Here this weekend, choosing Phoenix over traditional stuff.
Mhm.
Just such a talented Magic player. We'll see if he can get through the Izzet master himself, Maxx Kominowski.
Well, yeah, he may add yet another accolade to his case here. Both players revolving Sleight of Hand. I must say, Matthew result is much more quickly. So Max may be facing down a hand with some difficult choices over there, but an easy choice is turn 2 Ledger Shredder on the play here. Pass back to Matthew, who's going to decide whether or not to answer the Ledger Shredder or develop his own board, as you might expect. He's got a Lightning Axe for
Oh
the
my
Ledger Shredder. That's a perfect answer with a perfect card to discard, Arclight Phoenix.
No brakes on the have it all train is Matthew Hoey. Just such some awesome sequences. Some amount of this matchup, of course, is about lining your cards up with theirs.
Yeah.
And I would say Matthew Hoey's done a much better job lining up his cards against what Kominowski has to work with than the opposite. Ledger Shredder, normally a card pretty hard to remove, having such a large toughness, has had Lightning Axe, and usually with a Phoenix each time. And we're going to trigger it right now after Hoey's instep action, just to get the trigger for sure. Get to play around Torch the Tower a little bit. You know, if any kind of bargaining things get involved, you can get it up to 3. I'm not sure exactly what we can sacrifice, but I'm sure there's something. Artifacts, tokens, all of that.
That was another nice play by Max there to wait on that, to be able to do it like that, to guarantee that he gets a good use of it there. So, all right, Matthew very quickly just plays a land, plays spell, passes it back. Unlicensed Hearse. There is a parity breaker. That Phoenix in the graveyard, no longer just absolute free value for Matthew. Now it is under threat, under some duress, as is his life total as the Ledger Shredder begins to poke in.
Yeah, you can look at the powerful vehicle from Streets of New Capenna. Both good as a graveyard hate and as a big threat. We've seen that on Hoey's side. Maybe it's Kominowski's turn. And part of the problem with this card, too, against Arclight Phoenix is there's no pressure. You don't not like an instant speed flashback spell or anything like that. You can wait until the beginning of combat and get a second bird. If, for instance, Matthew hit one there, he would be able to get 2 birds right away. Now, kind of maybe fortunately for Hoey, he did not find a second bird off that Free the Fae. That would get exiled by Hearse, but maybe it's Max's turn to have it all. Finally got to untap of the Ledger Shredder, has an unlicensed Hearse in a great spot, but did miss a land drop.
Yeah, that's a great point about the Hearse being able to wait, though, is that there's not a lot of there's a lot of tricks you can do in your Izzet Phoenix deck, but getting around unlicensed Hearse is not really one of them. You just kind of have to, you can answer it if you have a way to destroy it, right? If you find one of those and protect your future Phoenixes, but it's just gonna eat the ones you've got, and that's a great spot for Max to be in, especially as somebody with the actual creature here, right? The connive triggers, which both players are going to give him. Not only are you going to grow the Shredder to a threat, it'll continue to help set up his hand. So Matthew's going to be looking first and foremost to answer Max's board. His early game plan there looked really good, but very good follow-ups from Max. Matthew now is the one going into the tank, trying to look through his options, decide what is the best way to try to dig out.
To that end, I think he found a Prismari Command, which is good at picking off the Hearse. But, if Kominowski, who's been representing some one-mana counter magic, actually has it, it can be really, really brutal to go for it now. So going for Lightning Axe, something where you might be able to pay for Spell Pierce and doesn't get tagged by Mystical Dispute, a good option here.
And also avoids the Shredder getting above 5 toughness before too long.
Even if he discards a spell, it still dies. And this is the last opportunity for that to be the case. We'll see.
Okay.
Yeah,
no
fight? Maybe no fight? Yeah, I mean, that's just
thinking about it. Let's just Shredder down.
Okay. Well, that's step 1.
It is.
And Matt Hoey did get to obliterate his own graveyard with Treasure Cruise and get some value out of that before Hearse really started to chop it down. But unfortunately, with obliterating your graveyard, that might just be the last delve spell you get to cast at a discount this game without some crazy sequences.
Yeah, well, okay, so taking stock of things, both players are not touching each other's life total, but they are very much doing damage to each other's game plans right now. And another pass back from Max, keeping up spells, keeping up Hearse. And of course, the Hearse being the parity breaker at the moment, right? That's the thing that obviously Matthew just has lands, but it's a growing threat. It messes with all the delve. It's something that has to be answered as soon as possible from Matthew, but in a spot where he can actually answer it and not just run into Max's own, counter magic or protection or anything like this. So, Temporal Trespass into the graveyard. Yeah, I mean, Max.
You have to. I mean, Max has been hitting on land, has been missing on land so much you can't even protect it, and missed again. And this is part of, Max does have the parity breaker in the form of unlicensed Hearse, but eventually always going to be able to break out from under any interaction Max has. And there's no creatures to crew this Hearse. He has free reign on attacking if he can assemble something. It just doesn't involve the graveyard. And these are the kinds of spots where things like Crackling Drake can start to look really good. Yes. Both good against Hearse and good in this spot where you have mana and your opponent doesn't.
Yeah, then that is what we're looking for now. It's just something for either of these players that can stick to the board and not just answer things, but into the game. And you're without something to crew the vehicle, it won't be doing that as of yet. Is this the Prankster? Is this Free the Fae on the stack?
No, I think this is clock mode.
Okay,
this is 1/3 Flying Vigilance. Beat downs.
Yeah.
Beep, beep.
Prankster deployed. Prismari Command from Maxx here. We'll see what he wants to do with it. Now, Matthew has got 4 mana open into this. He is also someone who's been looking for Prismari Command. I believe that would be a way to catch up some on the board. Let's see what he chooses to do
the
with
Hearst's
Maxx.
not super impactful at the moment.
Yeah.
Look at Prismari Command. A lot of options here. Kind of, I think, a fan favorite for its toolboxy nature. Able to deal 2 damage to any target. Target player draws 2 discards 2, and you target player can create a treasure token and then destroy target artifact. And yeah, how about response with your Prismari Command is my Prismari Command. So nice. We're doing it twice. Truly,
checks out. Looks like everybody gets their spells. No counter magic this time around. We're all just going to cast whatever we want. And that means some License Hearse is gone. That was a big step for Matthew Hoey, just in terms of getting rid of the future threat. And if he ever wants to do anything with his graveyard again, it now looks like it will be available to him. But of course, Maxx is about to resolve his own Prismari Command to go from there. He has not been really taking a lot of proactive, aggressive Phoenix type plays this game, but that could change very quickly now that he is in this turn where he's got Prismari Command resolving and then is about to see what he can do with it.
Yeah, I mean, both players resolving Prismari Command here. Now, Maxx having no Temporal Trespass in his deck means that having all the cards in his graveyard, which is kind of the last thing he has going for him over Hoey, there's a floor on it because really it only represents some treasure cruises, but treasure cruises can be huge here. Start hitting land drops, start catching up a little bit, did find a land, but he needs to start catching up from a spot where he was really ahead with the Hearse. Suddenly that's answered. Birds in Hoey's graveyard right away off the same Prismari Command, and things are starting to slip away again for Kominowski.
Ledger Shredder. All right, so Matthew deploying a Ledger Shredder, not doing anything, at least not just running out a bunch of cantrips and spells quite yet. Looks like he's just passing the turn back to Maxx, playing it a little slower, not trying to get that bird out quite yet, just playing a very safe threat with a Ledger Shredder, which Maxx is going to respond to with his own now. And we might see a lot of connive triggers start to go on the stack here.
Yeah. Now both players who have plenty to work with can cast 2 spells, move some cards around. I think Hoey may be a little bit more interested than Maxx seeing a bird potentially in hand, as well as just a much more diminished graveyard, something that connive helps feed as well. So still, I mean, Hoey gets to attack with his first if he wants it, kind of gets to dictate what the direction of this game goes from here. And Maxx still a little bit on the back foot, but Ledger Shredder certainly helps. This attack, I love this. Attack for 1. You want to block? No? You want to block?
There's a couple cards that get it, right? I mean, there's a couple 2, 3 damage, but things can happen. That makes it an interesting choice. Did Maxx just take it, or did he block?
No, yeah, he just took it. I love it. I love the attack there with just the prankster from Hoey. Love it so much. So little that could go wrong. And hey, you get the point, you get the point. And he certainly did get the point.
It's a prankster. Like, what happens? You fight over it and you lose it and you're down a prankster. Who cares?
Yeah, I mean, it could
All right, so Ledger Shredder from Matthew. The response is a Lightning Axe from Maxx, discarding a Mystical Dispute, I think. Either way, it's not a Phoenix getting discarded. There's the key thing. And now Matthew, with no second Ledger Shredder, or now has another Ledger Shredder, I guess. His board is, we're still dueling with those along with the Prankster. And now back over to Maxx. Okay, so we're just back and forth here. Players trading removal, trading creatures, trying to find a way to break parity. And Maxx is now, he's got some lands to work with, so he's no longer behind in that department.
Yeah, these large toughness creatures doing their best wall impression as the game goes on. Ironically, Prankster are kind of the best of the bunch, being able to have vigilance. You just get to keep attacking. I would expect Hoey to run that one again next turn. Maybe a little bit more dangerous though this time, so maybe not. But Kominowski, no delve spells, no threats outside of the single Ledger Shredder. Hoey has to be thrilled about that.
Now, here is a mirror breaker. Young Pyromancer hits the stack from Matthew. It resolves. He retains priority once that resolves, which means he can cast a spell if he wants to get a trigger before Maxx would even have an opportunity to remove it. As it stands, though, it looks like Matthew's just going to pass priority, and we're going to have a Brazen Borrower on Ledger Shredder.
Yeah, gonna go for a little petty theft after the Ledger Shredder. And now there's a little bit of maybe some liability to casting the actual Brazen Borrower side this turn and being mana efficient because you would trigger Ledger Shredder's back in hand, but you also tap low. And this is the first opportunity, I think, for Mystical Dispute to start to look really good. Both players aware of the power of that card, and Matt Hoey done a good job playing around it all game to the extent that Kominowski actually discarded it to Lightning Axe because it's mostly expired. Right. And now going to discard another one. Once again, mostly expired, does not have one there or does not want to use it. Plenty of mana left to interact for Hoey. I think that turn worked out pretty nicely for Kominowski overall.
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, if you're Hoey, you're very happy that you still have this Pyromancer in play, but Pyromancer is, in fact, a ground attacker and all of the tokens it makes around the ground. So if the Ledger Treasure gets big enough in the air to start controlling the skies, it takes a while for your Pyromancer to really start to matter, even though it is obviously an important card. This game might not be about that at this point.
Right. And I think, it's going to look good here against this Hall of Storm Giant if that's the direction Max is going to take to start attacking and get this game closed. But it is certainly, I think that's one of the aspects of the Izzet Phoenix Mirror that's maybe a little bit more personal approach oriented is, whether or not you want Pyromancer. Plenty of players do. Some players don't. Whatever. Like, that's kind of the more take it or leave it kind of card. And, might actually look pretty good here against this this Hall of Storm Giants, especially with all of the red removal mostly used on other things at this point in the game.
Yeah, it's certainly, look, if the plan is to attack with a 7/7, chump blocking seems really good. Now, Matthew still, with that said, we're in combat and Matthew is thinking about what he wants to do. So it's just not an easy choice, which you think it might be when your opponent taps out to swing at you. So he's going to go in the tank here to figure out what the way out of this one is. He's facing down an attack of, I believe that looks like 5 in the air and 7 on the ground. So it's a huge chunk. Something's going to have to happen. And he's trying to deduce what the best way to deal with this is. I don't know if you feel really good or really bad about the fact that your opponent tapped out to swing with Hall of Giants.
Well, Hall's a problem. And the mirror is very good because it's generally the biggest thing around. And yeah, we're going to see how we can even handle some of this stuff. Obviously, we're going to want to make a token if we can. And obviously he can. But the question is then what? Max has kind of made a statement with this attack on what his plan to win this game is. And it's going to start working through some of the blockers and whatever he draws. But right now, it doesn't really have anything else going on but the Hall. And that could be a problem. It's going to work through the blockers eventually. It's just scraps really that Hoey's working with behind on life. And you need to develop a plan to check that because just chumping every turn works, but it doesn't really win you the game outright. Gotta have something else to do.
And he's going to get the Prankster in there as well. He's going to go for the free block on the Ledger Shredder as opposed to the trade with the Brazen Borrower. Gets the just opts for the free chump blocks. Maybe saving spells to try to put together a Phoenix turn. Maybe just saying, well, this is the start for now, and I'm alive. 13 life that untaps. He's certainly got a window here if he's able to capitalize on it, if he's able to string together some cantrips, some spells to bring back Phoenixes perhaps, or conversely, you look to answer Max's board. So Matthew Hoey with a big spot here, starting things off Ledger Shredder.
Yeah, redeploying the Ledger Shredder that was bounced from the Petty Theft last turn. Second spell right away. Looks like a Lightning Axe. That's good enough to take care of the Shredder. Going to make a token for the Hall. So that starts to answer the board like you mentioned.
Now, this seems like a very good start here for Matthew. If this is what he wants to do. He's starting to build up a board here. He's got 4 bodies.
And this is one of those spots, especially with Kominowski's Temporal Trespass gone. Now, if Matthew finds his Temporal Trespass, things start to get bad. But if you remember, he still has a bird hanging out in the yard. Like, that could really start to turn up heat, especially with this Ledger Shredder leaving the equation. It's also another good blocker for Hall and can start to invalidate kind of Kominowski's plan to win this game. But I think really kind of what both players are just taking draw steps looking for is some treasure cruises. Just really start the ball rolling. You need more resources. They've done a lot of exchanging resources, a lot of making land drops, developing mana. Now they need to start to basically overpower the other player, and that starts by having enough resources to do that. Treasure Cruise is a great way to get all that started. Obviously, draw 3 cards. We've memed on it all tournament long, pretty strong. But I mean, both these players have access to that card. Hoey, the only one to resolve one thus far. Kominowski, certainly, I think, looking for one at this stage of the game to really start to springboard things in his favor.
Yeah, it certainly seems like one of the really key ones. And here's the torch. Takes out the Brazen Borrower. Oh. Okay. It looks like
we need. Remember 3 spells? We need 3 spells.
Magic number.
2 birds. I only saw 1 on screen. There's actually 2 in the yard. So 2 birds, a second token. That's worth countering your own torch for. And Brazen Borrower can threaten to block, but with all this pressure suddenly coming out of nowhere, Kominowski needs a big draw now.
All right, consider he's going to start things off. We've seen him dig out of a lot of wild spots before. Draws it. Next up, okay, it's a sleight of hand. That's going to start conniving for Matthew, of course. But does the sleight of hand reveal an answer like an opt?
Okay.
Another
all right. So grueling.
Yeah, it really.
Come on, you need some good ones.
A treasure cruise.
Okay, all right. That's what Kominowski needs. He does it again. Is it enough? We'll find out. But this is how it starts.
Okay, 1 Phoenix in the yard that we see. There could be more in there. You're right. He's at 9 life. This is, it could be the beginning of another wild Maxx comeback here. Here's the opt that I spotted. He's got plenty to bring him back, but we'll see how many he has to bring back because Matthew has a huge board of his own.
Yeah, it's so much pressure. 9 life is Kominowski. Dead on board by quite a bit. Needs a lot of answers. Treasure Cruise can supply them. Found a land drop, but he needs help.
Yeah.
Just your own bird? Okay. Well, we're not dead face up, but that's certainly an anticlimactic conclusion to finding mostly what he needs. Certainly the start of what he needed, but maybe didn't find the end. Hardcast bird.
Yeah.
Good enough to keep him alive right now.
I think he needed to churn a bunch of birds into the graveyard there. He wasn't able to do it. And that means, look, even if the birds trade, there's still just a lot of resources and creatures on Hoey's side. And after this attack, if Maxx isn't dead, he's certainly going to be within range of the 1/1 tokens from Young Pyromancer kind of poking through the final few points. So I think we're on a razor's edge here. Matthew staring down the board, trying to find exactly how he wants to navigate what looks like a very good spot for him up a game here in the finals. The NRG Championship Series in Chicago.
Yeah, everything's on the line right here. Max's entire tournament, the invites, the extra money, the bumping points. Needs to pull out another Houdini act. Didn't look like he had all the tools last turn. Currently looks like he's going to get another draw step, but Matthew Hoey has a ton of cards that could get him through as well. Trespass, some removal spells, his own treasure cruises. He's got a lot of good draws, but I assume with how long we've been thinking, we don't have access to any of those right now.
Yeah, it seems like Matthew is probably trying to figure out if there's a way here he can count to lethal, which is, of course, 9 points of damage. There's a lot running through his mind. You have to be able to, you can see him counting it up. If there was an easy answer, he would have found it. So we could be in for a few more turns here. The game might continue. Matthew trying to find these last couple points of damage. Takes a look at his hand. Looks like we're moving towards some action here. All Maxx, look at Maxx. All Maxx can do is just look on like he has in so many spots today. Just wild to have to just sit there and know that you've done everything you can do to try to dig your way out, and whether or not your plays are going to be rewarded depends on something entirely out of your control. And that's what it's going through his mind as he stares down Matthew Hoey trying to count up these points of damage.
Yeah, it's so brutal to really only be able to look and start to line up your blocks in your head for what happens if nothing bad happens. If it's just face up, what I see in front of me right now, how do I block? Make sure you have that dialed up. And if Hoey has anything strong, well, maybe you die, maybe you don't. But you want to be prepared to make the correct decision. And you have a lot of time to think about it as Hoey. Also, in a spot where, a lot of things could go wrong on the other side. We've seen what giving Kominowski just one more draw can do.
Mm-hmm.
And so Hoey totaling things up, really trying to find the best path to victory. A lot of large toughnesses, a lot of potential attackers, a lot of permutations about what he can do. And this is the attack
we've got a decision. 2 Phoenixes and a Ledger Shredder. Our turn sideways so far. We'll see if anything else wins them.
I love the save there.
His hands are still on him. You know,
it's like it's chess, right? Where like if you take your hands off, it's final. Otherwise, otherwise it's still.
He's not doing it. Look at that. All right. Well, looks like
those are
deciding whether
in.
or not the Pyromancer tokens are going to join in or not.
I would have said everybody.
Yeah, everybody. That seems like a good line, right? Is you just want to poke him down. Matthew trying to figure out maybe if he can die on the crackback here.
Leaving back a token speaks to fear of Hall of the Storm Giants. I just don't see Hall of the Storm Giants being good enough on its own, especially with the Trespass already in the yard for Kominowski, but whatever. The extra token point might also just not matter. So whatever, maybe just stop weird stuff from happening, have a ground blocker, just a little extra insurance. This seems fine to me. Double block on the Shredder. Love it. Got to get that off the board. Gonna need to string together spells to get your birds back next turn if you're gonna have a chance anyway.
7. I think this line needs him taking 7.
Yeah, and not sending the rest means that the double block's possible, right? Like that wouldn't be possible if we sent everybody. Maybe adjusting the blocks. All right, this is our final blocks. Get all the birds off the table. Get the empowerments off the table. Preserve a little bit more life. We're going to take 5 instead of 7. And back to Kominowski we go. He's another big draw.
He does, but you know what? He's got the Pyromancer off the field. He's at 4 life, which is, like we said, very much in range of just getting poked down here. But he certainly would have some outs, but instead he's just able to pass back to Hoey
in the graveyard. That's not a good sign if you're a Maxx Kominowski fan. Maybe his Houdini act has come to its natural conclusion at the hands of Matthew Hoey, who has been dominant in the Izzet Phoenix mirror through this entire top 8. I believe that will be his entire roster top 8. And Hoey's going to get it 3 times in a row. 2 lands in hand for Kominowski. He's not going to get the job done. And to Hoey goes the spoils. Invite to the regional championship. Invite to the NRG championship. All the money you can win, all the points you can win. And that's just his day 1. Could still come back, play more Magic tomorrow. An incredible weekend for Matthew Hoey thus far.
Yeah, that was a great finals match. It showed everything. I mean, look, he had a lot of the cards you need, but that last game, it drug on. We thought he might be behind at first with the Hearse. He was able to fight back and just climb in, just able to make everything line up his way just through careful planning and practice of his deck. An extremely impressive win for him here at the championship. We are going to be getting him here into the booth for an interview in a few moments, but what a way to start things off here with Pioneer. We see a dominant Izzet Phoenix run after we watched Azorius Control have success all day. And in the end, it was Izzet Phoenix that was able to take it down.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier in the broadcast how much this weekend is going to start to set the stage for the Pro Tour next weekend. There's going to be a lot of eyes on the Pioneer format this weekend. And with 5 copies of Izzet Phoenix in the top 8, Lotus Field was already a deck we saw in the hands of Andre Maguchi, Adrian, some of these other players that came and clearly or had some intent to play the deck, or at least have their eyes on the deck, has a good matchup against Izzet Phoenix, maybe looking their chops there. But with this much Izzet Phoenix, it sets the stage for adjustment going into next week. Right. There's a lot of things you can do to tackle Izzet Phoenix as a deck if you want to gun for it. And I think that with the results this weekend, we're going to begin to see some of that. But for the time being, I mean, if you're a Pioneer fan, there was a ton of sweet matchups all day long that we got to watch. Top 8 may have been filled with Izzet Phoenix, but even still, a ton of awesome Magic to be played. Maybe I'm biased. I love me some Izzet Phoenix, but I thought it was a lot of great Magic. And at the end of the day, Matthew Hoey able to just trash all of the Izzet Phoenix through the top 8. And we're going to hear what that experience is like right now. I believe we have Hoey waiting for us. Congratulations, Matthew.
Congrats.
Hoey.
Thanks, guys.
I want to talk. First and foremost, I want to talk about your deck decision. So NRG Series, in my opinion, fairly well known, and you know better than me, certainly, how much control is in the room. When you pick a deck like Izzet Phoenix, I think it makes a clear statement about not just your perspective metagame, but even your own opinion on control in the metagame. Can you talk a little bit about your deck choice this weekend?
Yeah, I think control is a good deck choice, but you know, Phoenix just gives you the most ability to control your games, even against blue-white. So there's only 2 decks I play in this format, and it's Phoenix and blue-white.
Well, that's extremely fair. And Phoenix, you mentioned one of the decks you play in the format. How much experience did you have in the mirror coming into this weekend? Because that seemed to matter quite a bit in your run so far.
Yeah, I've played that a lot over the years. I mean, it's mostly just the same. I had some lucky torch the towers, so that's always nice. I milled a lot of Phoenixes, so sometimes you're lucky.
Well, it was a great run throughout the entire day, and of course now you punch your ticket. Not just that you finish, you win the invite to the championship at the end of the year. I mean, to put into perspective, I guess how big today was for you to have another win here.
It was great. My deck decided that they weren't going to show up for tomorrow, so I wasn't going to be able to play. So I'm happy that I don't need to.
Well, you certainly made the most out of today, huh?
Yeah.
I did not know that. I was commenting a little bit about how you have the opportunity to play Standard tomorrow. I guess not.
I do not. Bernal was going to borrow me a deck, and he decided not to come. So.
Oof. Well, as you said, you didn't need it. Yeah, talk a little bit about that. You're someone that, when I think of the NRG series, you are a name that is synonymous with success on the NRG series. I see you over and over again in these championships. I see you constant success in the series. How does it feel to be qualified for the end of year championship right now? First tournament, able to punch your ticket. You know, you don't have to grind it out like I've seen you do through multiple seasons.
Yeah, last year I didn't grind it out, and I don't really have any intention of doing it this year, so very glad that isn't even a thought in my mind. Don't even need to.
Clicked it right now. Through an impressive performance. I want to highlight the finals. You know, you played a lot as Izzet Phoenix through apparently your entire Pioneer career, and the mirror through the entire top 8. Going into the finals, Maxx Kominowski, someone that I think very synonymous with Izzet decks, synonymous with Izzet. I mean, what are your thoughts going in, having to play, I don't want to say maybe among the best players that are synonymous with that deck?
I didn't really mind too much. I figured that I was going to be playing Lotus Field if I was in the finals, and Max thought he was 0% to win, so I'm happy it was him and not Lotus Field.
Definitely could see that. You know, that's once again something we talked about through the entire top 8. Lotus Field, good matchup, not 100%, maybe not even 90%. And you got your Izzet in the finals, and yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Being a lot more relieved that it's not.
I think it's pretty close to 90%. We don't have anything in our sideboards for it. There's no Alpine Moon or anything.
Well, we certainly watched. We watched a very interesting matchup. That was for sure for Max to pull that upset. But yeah, I mean, what a finals! Congratulations to you to pick this up here first time. And hey, now you get to take tomorrow off and just cheer your friends on.
I certainly do.
Yeah, I want to congratulate you. You know, you have a qualification to the regional championship, qualification to the NRG championship, all the money, all the points. You got any final shout outs? You've won the tournament. You are the champion, and an impressive display with your Izzet Phoenix deck of choice for this weekend.
Yeah. Shout out to my buddy Joe Bernal, who decided not to give me a deck, and my sponsor, Hot Sauce Games.
Hot Sauce
Thank
Games.
you so
Check
much,
it out.
man.
Sponsors, one of the best players. And Joe Bernal, you know, you made him win the tournament by not bringing a deck. So I guess shout out for that reason. And yeah, Matthew, it was a pleasure watching. I'm sure I will see you more. If nothing else, than in the NRG Championship, and an incredible run, incredible performance. Congratulations to you.
I'm sure you will. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, man.
Thank you. All right, well, there you have it. Slice through the Izzet Phoenix dominant top 8. 5 copies in the top 8. Hoey able to get it done with his own version, his own take, and you know, having to defeat the mirror along the way. So very well versed in that is Matthew Hoey. He's our champion. He's got pile of money, pile of invites, all those things we talked about, in a trophy, a token, all the spoils coming his way. So you will be seeing more of him, if nothing else, than at the end of the year. Now, we do have a $5,000 showdown again tomorrow, so we're going to be qualifying another player for the end of year championship then as well. But that is going to do it for Pioneer this weekend, and there you have it, the results ahead of the Pro Tour next weekend.
Yeah, an incredible weekend, an amazing run, and it's going to be back tomorrow. Check out the coverage tomorrow. We will have the standard tournament coming to you. Thank you, everyone, so much for staying with us through this incredible tournament. Thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for watching the top 8, supporting the NRG series. You make it all possible.
Yeah, if you want to support the channel, make sure to follow this channel on Twitch. Make sure to subscribe. I think I saw some Twitch chatters complaining about ads. You have the power to change that, doing a little subscription to the channel. It does support Paper Magic. It supports us, and it removes the ads if those are an annoyance to you. So shout out to everybody staying here watching. Make sure to support the channel and be back tomorrow for some standard coverage. Well, once again, we will qualify another player to the End of Year Championship and continue to move the series along. First points distributed, first champion crowned, but we have more work to do tomorrow. Make sure to check that out. I believe that'll be 9 a.m. Central, but if I'm wrong, whatever. They can complain to me. If you're up at 9 a.m., you ain't going to miss it. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you tomorrow.